Welcome to Verbal Pick Radio, where we give you a verbal image of life, and we are everyday people. Like to welcome you all to the show. Today we're going to discuss a ancient topic, but it's prevalent for today's time, and it's called dissatisfaction versus satisfaction. And I have Brother Nasiir Muhammad on the phone with me, and we're going to get into this topic. Brother Nasiir, welcome to the show.
Thank you, my brother. It's a pleasure being here.
Yes, sir.
And, greetings to your audience.
Thank you, brother. And the reason I wanted you on the show because mental self-defense, you need that in order to follow us on this topic. But mental self-defense is a strength all within itself.
Correct.
So let's get into it, brother. Okay, so now listen to Brother Malcolm, right? Malcolm, and when he was discussing the teachings, right? He said 100%, out of 100%, 30% was dissatisfied, right?
Right.
And out of that 30%, a teaching came about, or an ideology came about, and that ideology had gotten form and expression, right? And then from that ideology, it came up with a division to divide and conquer, and that was the only way the dissatisfied can rule the 70% satisfied was to divide them, right?
Okay.
So that process took place for 6,000 years. Now, the ideology was supposed to die out by the year 1914, but okay, we'll give another 100 years in order for the satisfied to separate themselves from the dissatisfied, or else when the weight of the lies fall upon the dissatisfied, those who had the mindset out of the 70% satisfied, those who took on the mindset of dissatisfied, they fall up under that weight as well if they don't separate from the ideology that came from the 30% dissatisfied. So, my question is, brother, how can the 70% satisfied, how can the 70% satisfied overcome the weight that was put on them by the dissatisfied? When the time of the dissatisfied is up, how do they get up from under that weight of the dissatisfied?
Well, that's really that's a good question, a very good question. Now, you got me thinking now and it's something that we'll have to verify. I'm leaning toward the fact that it was 70% dissatisfied and 30 satisfied. Because based on, I could have my numbers wrong, but I believe that we were taught that you got to have at least 70% that are dissatisfied, before change can actually take place. The number has to be greater than those that are satisfied with their condition.
Okay. So that means then that you're right that the majority, the 70% majority, can't function properly under the weight of a smaller rule, of a minority rule. See, what Malcolm was saying was that Yakub tapped into that 30% dissatisfied, so that 59,999 of his followers they took to the island of Patmos was 30% of the population of the population at the time that he took of the dissatisfied. And he was basically saying that they grafted them down to 100% recessive, or what they call the Caucasian today, weak bone, weak blood, and that made them that made them able to take in the teachings of tricknology, of tricks and lies.
Okay. Now let me see. Now, according to what I believe, you know, Yakub, when he came up with this idea, you know, of making a man that would oppose, you know, the original man, he had to come up with a way to get the people to go along with the idea. And so what he did was he tapped into those who were dissatisfied, and he began to take the mentality, and he began to take the reasons the dissatisfied were dissatisfied. He began to increase those numbers, you know.
Okay.
And then once the dissatisfied, you know, got to a higher percentage, and I believe that was the 70%, then that's when Yakub was told to take his people and get away from where they were, because they were creating mischief. You know, they were creating a problem. And so the king, you know, went to Yakub while Yakub was locked up, and they hammered out a deal, you know, while Yakub was locked up. And so that deal consisted of provisions for 25 years.
You said 20, 25, yes, sir.
Yeah, I believe 25 years. And that, you know, because the king was aware that Yakub was the man that had been prophesied about. They knew that this was coming.
Come on.
They knew that a man like Yakub was predicted to come. And when things started to take place that began to reveal what the king had been, you know, the king, and not just the king, but those who were learned, you know, once they began to see things shaping up that looked like what they were, you know, looking for, they realized that this man Yakub was the one, and that, you know, this was his time, you know. And so instead of destroying Yakub, they said, no, we're going to let him go and do what it is that he's supposed to do. This is his time. You know, he's the man. You know, we're not going to interfere with him. We're not going to kill him. You know, he's the man. So he was permitted to go and take all of those that, you know, followed him, and do whatever it was that he was, you know, prophesied to do. And, you know, like you said, you know, you mentioned the numbers that went with him. And from those numbers, you know, Yakub began to graft out of the original man what we know today as the Caucasian.
Yeah, and then so that system, he created a system to teach them on how to rule over us.
Yes, sir. Well, you got to look at it this way. And here's the sad part. It takes one of us, you know, to know us. You know what I'm saying? It's like if you and I grow up in the same house together, and someone comes along who hasn't grown up in the house with us, and I make a deal with that individual. ours was a major, because that was something that our people didn't do to
Right.
one another back then. The truth was the truth was the order of the day.
Right.
So if I told you something, then more than likely, you were going to believe me, because that was the order of the day. We just didn't lie to one another.
Right.
And so now you got this man who comes along and is telling you things. You're believing it because you think it's the truth, and it's actually not. And so it's like, if I come along and tell you that your neighbor said something about you and your neighbor didn't, well, you're going to believe me because you have no reason not to. And so that's where all the mischief began.
So that means then that today, then, wow, we got to figure out which side of the fence the people are on. So are we on the satisfied or the dissatisfied?
Oh man, it's real interesting that you'd ask this question, because there was something today that came to my mind earlier today. I was thinking about a book entitled "Outwitting the Devil" by Napoleon Hill, and one of the things he talks about is hypnotic rhythm, and hypnotic rhythm is taking whatever it is that you do, on a consistent basis, and whether it's good or whether it's bad, you take whatever it is and you do it so long, so often, that it creates a rhythm to itself. And once you reach that point to where whatever it is you're doing creates a rhythm to itself, it's very difficult to break.
Right.
And so I was thinking to myself that black people have turned suffering into a rhythm.
Yes.
And because, we've turned it into a rhythm, it's very difficult to break.
Exactly. Look. To prove your point, right? One, whenever they would prop up that preacher and put Master's old coat on him and give him parts of the New Testament to teach to the rest of the slaves of slave turn the other cheek and whatnot. It was a pain that went along with that, and a lot of those what they call Negro spirituals had a rhythm to it that was sung out of pain.
Right.
But that's why the slave master would say, sing me one of them Negro spirituals, right? Because he wanted to keep that rhythm and that cadence going on for his future generations, because he knew intertwined in that was pain, was at the bottom of it. Right. Because that action was produced out of pain. Right. So today, when they say, well, damn man, the mindset and not much has changed since, since the early slave days, well, hell, we gotta do a 180-degree change from what we've been doing in order to seek that change. Hell, it's 2020, and with all of this technology and internet and modern day information, there's no need for a slave mentality to be present in today's time. But
no, not at all.
At all. But if we continue with that same rhythm and motion that was born up out of slavery, because the planet has a rhythm, then we'll keep passing that same mindset on from generation to generation. Because in Egypt, one of the sciences was music and the arts. It's a science because it's a rhythm, and a rhythm equates to mathematics. And so that's why the messenger said here, he knows all about you. Study him. Right? It's like,
You're right.
It's almost like we have to study him and what he did to us to lock us in. We understand what happened with the Willie Lynch laws and whatnot, but still it goes deeper into that because we would have to flip, and that's why we're doing this topic today. For those that's listening, we have to flip the definition of what satisfied really means, because some people believe that when you satisfied, then you go along with the status quo.
Correct.
But then there's also a satisfied when you confident, you satisfied within yourself, you know who you are, so you move out on being satisfied. So when someone comes up and they try to knock you off your square, your pad, where you satisfied with the knowledge that you have that's bringing you success, so you're not easily moved.
Correct.
You get what I'm saying, brother? So
yes, sir.
And so the thing is how do we change the dynamics, the rhythm, the narrative that they created for us and boxed us in? Lion walking in the cage, but the door is up. You still walking that same circumference. What will shock the lion to move out of his comfort zone? We thought Trump was going to do it.
Well, no, Trump was a catalyst. He was one of the elements or one of the tools that Allah used in order to stimulate movement among our people. Stimulate a thought among our people that we need to do for self and stop leaning towards somebody else to do for us what we can do for ourselves. And because our people did not listen to the messenger, did not listen to a few others who came along with a beautiful message teaching self-economics and doing for self and knowledge of self, and this is why we are in the condition that we're in. But you gotta realize that the power, the power of those that are in power is so severe, that our people are satisfied with their dissatisfaction, and that's where the problem lies. I give you an example. We were given everything unhealthy to eat, from the master's table. We were given the filthiest animal on the planet, but because that was all we had, we made do, and we turned it into something that we could be satisfied with, to the degree that we still eat that animal today, even though we've been instructed not to.
Right.
Okay? So, and this is what we've done with everything. Our people, deep down inside, they know what's wrong, and they know what's right. But Scripture says that there would be a time when you wouldn't know wrong from right. The lie would become taken as the truth, and the truth would become taken as the lie. And so it's very difficult now to share the truth with our people, because they don't, deep down inside, in their essence, they know it to be the truth, but it's very difficult for them to consciously accept it. And so the answer is, of course, knowledge. Scriptures say, one must be renewed by the renewing of your mind, and you cannot renew the mind putting the same information in it. You can't put You know, the problem is that they haven't accepted it because, you know, so much is given, much is required. And so once you accept it, you become responsible for whatever that knowledge is that you accept. And black people don't want to be responsible because we too busy blaming white folks. We too busy blaming other than ourselves for the problems that we have created. Remember that the Caucasian, the devil, is a problem we created. One of our own people created.
Right. It's fear. You know, our people are afraid of that knowledge because that knowledge requires action.
It requires action. It's fear and it's comfort. You know, we're comfort in our captivity, and because we're comfortable, we don't want anything to make us, you know, uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know,
because you know they were showing in D.C. where some of the Proud Boys and white supremacists was burning the Black Lives Matter signs at historically black churches in D.C., right? And they were putting the response of the pastors, you know, on Twitter and whatnot and in the news. And their response was so antiquated, you know, it's like, dude, it's 2020, that's the best you got in response to your place of worship being vandalized. You know, the response was like, this reminds me of the Ku Klux Klan, you know, back in the day. And this is like, you know, we heard that before, but your response has to coincide with today's thinking and time.
Well, I mean, I agree. And, you know, I mean, when you talk about the clergy and you talk about those in leadership in terms of leading our people, we're supposed to know, you know, that there is a time and a season for everything. And they have to be smart enough to understand what time we're in. You know, we're in a time that dictates what it is that we need to be doing. And it's not being passive, you know.
Right.
By no means. This is not a time for passivity, however you pronounce that, but this is just not the time.
That's right. Well, Yakub's teaching, Yakub's children, you know, they see that as fear. They eat it up, and you actually giving them a pass to even do more because they like, damn, this is all you got. You trying to plead to the nature of them when their nature was created to be in disagreement with you.
Correct.
Yeah, but you know, but you can't tell me that these some college graduate pastors and leaders don't know these teachings.
Well, they know the teachings, but once again, they're afraid out of fear. You know, they don't want to reveal, or they don't want to create this kind of thought in their churches, you know, because they're going against the grain. They're going against the establishment that they stepped into because, you know, the clergy, the pastors, you know, they are part of a mindset. They are part of, it's going back to what you said, you know, on the plantation where the slave master would give the pastors whatever it was he wanted them to teach. And it's the same today, although they're not really giving it to them. We're doing it to ourselves, you see. And once again, going back to Willie Lynch, you know, the method that Willie Lynch taught the slave owners, he said that, look, once you implement this and you keep this going for a certain period of time, you don't even have to do it anymore. He said it would become so repetitive that they would begin to do it themselves. And so this is what we are doing. And it's clear, you know, every day we see that, you know, there's no white man, there's nobody in the community telling us to shoot and kill one another.
Right.
No. He created not only the atmosphere, but he created the mindset, he created the circumstances to cause us to do these things. He's not really there, you know, telling you to go do it, but because he created the mindset and
Mm-hmm.
you know, because if you get into the mind of the woman, whenever that woman bear a child, she's going to put that mindset into the child, and therefore that mentality would continue for generations and generations
Mm-hmm.
until, according to the story, until a phenomenon occurred, which is something that comes along and breaks that mentality. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
There you go. And
And
right, and that's all we're doing. Is
that's all we're doing.
right.
We're continuing something that was put in place.
That's right.
You know, it's like we act like we don't have any other choices, but we actually do. I mean, like we've been taught we like the devil because the devil gives us nothing. He gives us nothing. What we're getting from him is nothing.
It's nothing.
Basically.
Now, brothers like yourself and myself, job, as they say, to teach the uncivilized, but to find that sound or that word that could reach that core and wake the people up, right? And the reason being is, and I'm got this listening to Malcolm too, right? He was stating that we write our history in advance, right? A year for every mile, right?
Right.
And then we walk through it, right?
Correct.
Then they bottle it up and they store it in Mecca. And only the original man can go read it and view it. It's right there. Right? And so you have people saying, hey, look, we know the history of being up under the Yakub's children for 6,000 years, and it ended in 1914. We give you another 100 years of grace. We'll take it to 2014, so you can get your mind right. But if you don't, as you got the minister warning, this is what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen. And the people like, I don't know if I'm going to go against my slave master for you. You talking about the black man as God, and you talking about Yakub and technology. I don't know if I'm going to, digest that when it was already written and you walking through it anyway. Should be blessed that you got people who care enough that will come to you and say, hey, you're eating the wrong foods. You need to do for self. And you know what I mean? Because it's already written, and it is, I mean, can that history that's been already written in advance, can it be changed?
I believe
Brother.
The prophets did predict, but the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said we can't beat prophecy, and that has been the objective. Was to beat prophecy. Which I would assume means to change it a little bit or alter what the prophets predicted a little bit. But in all honesty, and this is just me talking, I don't even see it, brother, because our people, are not, as the scriptures say, are not hearkened to the music, that's been played, we won't march to the beat of Allah's drum. We won't march to the beat of the drum that's playing right now. And the drums that are playing are the war drums. We're at war right now, and our people still playing around them, thinking that, if we're not, they don't seem to understand. And we are definitely in a time of survival as a people,
Yeah, they.
And we've got to start responding, like that and doing things, because it's like I go back to Shabbat
So,
So that's something that we need to study as well. Because a question would be, well, how did Shabazz master the beast back then? And if his way or what he did back then can be implemented today, because it is relevant. There is some relevance to it. It's something that we need to study. But basically, man, these people are not doing anything that we didn't put in them to do. And once we step into the knowledge of who we are, and what we are, then we won't have any problems doing what is necessary to master, like Shabazz, to master this beast. Black people are just afraid, because we've been made to fear. And as long as we continue to fear, the changes that are necessary are not going to come.
So you saying that the masses is not dissatisfied enough to spark the mindset to want to create the change that's necessary?
I believe the masses are dissatisfied, but the movement that comes with dissatisfaction, they refuse to respond to the dissatisfaction in such a way that it creates the change that they want. It's like if when you sit in a certain position for so long, the body tends to get a little discomfort, so you shift and you change position.
Right.
It's time for black people to shift and change position, and we just refuse to do it. We act like we can't do it until somebody comes along and moves us or does it for us. No.
Come on,
this is something we got to do ourselves.
Good.
We're sitting here growing bed sores because we refuse to move. We refuse to roll over.
Come on, bro.
You know what's happening. You know what's happening to yourself. Your ass got bed sores all up and down one side of your body, and because you just refuse to roll over. You want one of the nurses or the nurse's aides to come in and roll you over. You have the ability to do it, but you're so used to somebody else doing it that you don't even think you can.
Yeah,
and maybe it hurts a little bit for you to do it, but it doesn't mean you can't.
Right.
You just don't want to feel that little bit of pain necessary to give you the relief that your body needs.
Come on, brother. Because the frightening part of it all, brother, is you look at it, you go back, 66 trillion years ago when the moon was split?
Yes, sir.
For one of the scientists wanting to speak the same language? Dissatisfaction. Then 50,000 years ago, tribal Shabazz move out and goes into the jungles of Africa. Then the slave trade with some of our leaders, some of the leaders selling some into bondage, even though they didn't know it would be the type of bondage we went through. But that's another form of trying to destroy us off. We still remain, but now we faced with something that might even been bigger than the 66 trillion years ago fiasco. The fact that if we don't stand up and take our rightful place and function up under the right mindset and time, we're just withering each other away as far as shooting, killing each other, and the whole nine, without a catalyst or something that will cause us to do an about face or a 180-degree turn and repair instead of destroy.
Yes, sir.
Well,
brother, it's always going to be, and it always has been, just a small few. It doesn't matter how many people are listening to us right now. There's only a few people that are going to hear what we're saying and accept it to be the truth and begin to make a change for themselves, because it's always been that way. And require uh, a whole bunch of people to make a change. It's never been required for 100% of the people to agree for a change to occur.
Right.
And so it's like when the Quran, speaking of itself, says that this book is for the believer.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not a believer, it doesn't matter how much or how often you read this book. If you're not a believer, you're not going to get the message from it that you are supposed to receive.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
Right. And so this is, and this is why we're part of the reason why we're in the condition that we're in, because our people have heard the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. They've heard Malcolm, they've heard Muhammad Ali, they've heard Brother Khaled, they've heard all of the other ministers and brother ministers and sister ministers and all of the community activists who have accepted the teachings or thought of the teaching and have tried to move on and do some things. And so it's not like our people don't know the truth today. It's hard for me to believe that they don't know the truth, because if they've heard of any of those individuals, and they have heard,
right.
No matter whatever degree it is that they've heard, they have heard, So it's up to them to believe, and it's up to them to move out on it, because belief counts for nothing unless carried into practice. It's one thing to say you believe it. It's another thing to move out on what you believe.
Right. Exactly. That takes strength. Well, that takes
courage. It takes strength. It takes some degree of boldness, because you're going against the grain. It is, and once you have exposed yourself, going back to Jesus saying this is not a race, but it's about endurance. It's about being able to endure. Once you have exposed yourself, you got to be able to endure the hardships that's going to come from those who don't want you to exist. Because what you represent is destruction to what they have projected and what they believe.
Right. And we're just seeking freedom, justice, and equality.
Correct.
It's not personal. It's not personal against any other being. It's just that's our nature. So of course we're going to seek it.
Correct.
But
there's nothing personal.
Right.
No, nothing is just personal. It's just business. It is what it is. It's like, and this is why I love the messenger so much, because he would put it out there and he said, you take it or leave it alone. It's not my job to make you believe it. My job is to deliver the message. It's up to you to take the message and do something with it, or leave it alone. I'm not going to sit here and try to beat this belief into you. That's not my job.
Right.
And our job is the same as his. Like, what we're doing now. We're just delivering a message that was delivered to us, that we believed. And because we believe, our belief is being carried into practice, because we're now doing the same thing. We're taking the message and we're sharing it with other people. So it's up to them to believe it or not. And so I, like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, say you either accept it or leave it alone. It makes no difference to us which one you do.
That's right. Now let me ask you this last question, brother, before we get out of here, right? It was stated that Islam was prescribed for us because it removes our fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
So can we get to the destination of the goal without Islam?
That's a really good question, brother. Because when you say Islam, immediately people think about a religion. It's like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad calling the white man the devil. They immediately get emotional. Emotions are stirred without you investigating nature of the universe. And so, no, there's nothing that we can do or want to do. There's nothing you're going to be successful at unless you have accepted Islam. Okay, so what do you mean? Okay, Islam, total submission, okay, to the will of Allah. That's what we're talking about. But Islam can be applied at many different levels. If it's something that you want to do, you have to submit to whatever the process is in order to be successful.
Right.
So anytime you submit to that process, you are exercising Islam.
Right. Well said.
So no, brother, you, and this is why it's so easy to say that someone who refers to themselves as Christians, it's so easy to say, well, your actions tell us that you're a Muslim, because of what you are doing and what you say from your own mouth based on definition.
Right.
You got to look at it. I mean, just look at your actions. What are you doing? And I'll give you an example, and I say this because I actually did this once, speaking to a group of Jehovah's Witnesses, that was going door to door. They stopped me and we began conversating. And I asked them, I said, so, I asked, can I ask you a question? And there was an elderly sister. She said, yes, sure. I said, so, you believe in Jesus? She said, yes, we do. I said, so, do you think, what you're doing is, in terms of going door to door and things of that nature, do you think that you're doing the work of Jesus? And he said, yes. I said, so would you also agree that the work that you're doing falls under the category of Jesus says, when Jesus says, it's not my will, but thy will be done, that Jesus was doing the work of his Father, and not his own. And they said, well, yeah, I could see that, in a way. I said, well, do you know the definition of what it means to be a Muslim? She said, no, I don't believe I do. And so when I gave her the definition, I said, so based on what you just told me out of your own mouth, I said, I can say you are a Muslim based on definition because you just stood in and told me that what you're doing and your people are doing is have submitted your will, like Jesus, to do the will of your Father. And this is why you are going door to door spreading the gospel. And she looked at me and just, there was no, she said, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, facts, bro. Yes, sir. But look, might be some other things in there they didn't know on the foundation of it as well. But yes, sir, brother.
Right. Well, you and I both know that, part of the process, part of what, at the foundation of what we know today as the Jehovah's Witnesses, some of that came from the same source that ours came from.
Yes, sir, bro. Brother Sid.
Yes, sir.
But,
so,
brother Sid, repeat that one time because they didn't want you to get that out, bro.
Yes, sir. Well, when you go back and you'd have to be among some of the people who know this to be the fact. When you look at the two individuals who created or came to know as Jehovah's Witness, I can't even call their names right now. Go back and study. If from what I've been told, were around during the time that Nasiir Muhammad taught approximately 25,000. And so some of those took what was being taught by Nasiir Muhammad and they went on to do things, in the way that they chose to do it. And one of those that did that was the founder of what we come to know
Okay.
Whether people agree or disagree, we know that he had something to do with that, because what we've been taught is that he taught approximately 25,000.
That's heavy within itself, bro. Just the
Yes, sir.
That's the circumference of the earth.
Yes, sir. I mean, he was in America before he made himself known, in Detroit, July the 4th, 1930. He was in and out of America for 20 years, studying these people up close and personal, living with them, going to school with them. In order to deliver us, he had to study them.
Yeah, right.
Going back to Shabazz. Shabazz studied the beast before he reached a point where he felt like he could master that beast, and so he was brave enough and courageous enough to go back and talk to the elders and say, look, this is what I want to do. And he wanted to know if they were with him. They said, nah, we know what's over there. Ain't nothing but death over there dealing with them, the beast in those jungles. They said, nah, we're comfortable here. If you want to go, just like Yakub, take those with you and your family, and you go. And so he did, but see, he didn't go. He didn't just decide on a whim, I'm going to go into the jungles of East Asia, and I'm going to, take these people, we're going to create a people that'll be stronger than those that I'm living with right now, stronger than the people I see. No. He knew what was there.
Yeah,
but he obviously took some time to study, those animals. Nobody knows how long he studied them before he came to the conclusion that he could master them and live among them. That hasn't been taught to us.
Yeah,
but we know it. He was a wise man.
That's right. But the devil's so cold, right? He says, look, I'm not going to teach y'all how to read or write, and I'm going to hide everything in a book, because if you sparked interest in knowledge and studying, you might study us and run us from amongst you once you figure out who we are. So anything dealing with knowledge, education, we're going to discredit it for you, because if you started studying who we are, it could be a problem.
Well, that's true, but it's not just studying who they are, because once you begin to study who they are, the realization of who we are is also becomes evident. Also is exposed. So there's two things that's being exposed. You're exposing who they are, and you're exposing who you are. The knowledge that's been hidden. So you're right. That is something that they never wanted us to know, because you can't rule a man who has the same degree or more knowledge than you have. You just can't do it.
Right. Fact.
Unless you put that man to sleep.
Right. And there you go. Dag. And that's what happened. And then it's almost like when we marched them across the burning sands into the Caucasus Mountains and put that flaming sword, as a protection to keep them locked in, right?
Right.
Well, he does the same thing with us. He monitors and makes sure that we don't get that. He tries to. For some, that they don't get that type of knowledge.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and that's what happened. Anybody that came along, if the slave master found anybody trying to teach us how to read and write, they would more than likely be killed, and if not killed, they would be beat damn near, to death, and ran away from that area. But because they did not want light coming to the slave, they did not want knowledge coming to the slave, and they didn't care who it was, because when you bring light, when you bring knowledge to the slave, that's somebody that you can no longer enslave, because now, they're thinking for themselves. It's like Nat Turner, he had enough understanding on his own to know how to read the Bible and come to his own conclusion. And when he came to his own conclusion,
That's a fact.
And he believed that he had the right to do so based on his understanding. And this is that knowledge that they don't want to come to you today. And this is why, you look at people like Grandmaster Jay and the NFAC, and, you see these brothers exercising their constitutional rights to bear arms. And now you got, thousands of black people marching and coming together for a formation with some of the same high-powered weaponry that white people have always had, but did not want us to have them. So now you got a sense of fear floating through America, because not only have we exercised our constitutional rights, but we have now done it to a degree that we have overpassed most of the militias that have been in this country for generations. The NFAC is now the second largest militia in America.
Yeah, that's something to talk about. I mean, that's a feat within itself.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And it was done in a short period of time, and which goes to show, once our people, accept something to be the truth, I mean, is nothing that we can't do. Let's take the Million Man March. The first Million Man March. I mean, look at how many people showed up.
That's right.
A million was called, and close to 2 million showed up.
Right. Fact. That's fact.
And that was proof in itself that when it's something that we really want to get behind and we really want to do, we can do it. And there's nothing they can do to stop us.
That's right. No, that's right. What they'll do is let time pass, and they'll try to come behind it, and get they Toms and they Negro who they have under control. And
let's go back to rhythm. This is part of the reason why the music industry projects, a type of music that doesn't cater to our upliftment. It caters to our destruction. Because when you look at the music that was floating around the late 80s going into the early 90s, it was conscious music.
Right.
According to what, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan said, he said that during that time, you had more and more black people, more and more blacks enrolling in colleges than had ever before. And it's because it was because we became proud, African medallions you seen us wearing around our neck, sisters in African earrings, African, dashikis and all this stuff, we became proud again. And so when the devil saw this, the powers that be, when they saw this, they had to put a stop to it, and they knew that one of the ways that they could slow it down was through the music. And this is when, the music of NWA, No Fault on Those Brothers, and the music of my brother from Florida, what's his name?
Luke 2 Live Crew.
Yeah, it's 2 Live Crew.
Too Short.
This is when, yes, sir. So this is when that kind of music became, we began to hear that kind of music more than anything else, and it's still going on today. And I know that the artists today, most of them are conscious of it, but instead of being more of a conscious artist, they're doing what they do because it's all about the cheddar.
Right.
It's all about making money. It's not about the upliftment of our people. Using that platform to uplift our people.
Yeah, well, they know that hell, the colonizer's not gonna pay them for that.
No, not at all. Yeah. And the colonizer makes it very clear.
Right.
If this is what you want to do, then you go do it over there.
Right.
And this is why you have underground, what we know today is underground music. Underground music is more conscious than the music that we hear.
Right. That's right. Well, exactly right, brother. And before we go, we are You all that's listening, we're working on a documentary. We're putting together with Brother Nasiir Muhammad and the different entertainers, artists, and activists that he secured over the years. And so you all stay tuned for that within the near future. And Brother Nasiir, I appreciate you. Yes, sir, brother.
Yes, sir.
And appreciate you on the show. We not through, brother Nasiir. We're gonna do more shows because knowledge needs to be given, especially in this period in time that we're living in.
Well, this is what the airways are for. This is one of the main reasons for using the airways is to impart knowledge that the people can use. There's so much negativity out here, and there's so many lies being told, and nobody listening has to believe anything we say. You don't have to believe a word that we're saying, but at least be conscious enough to go and investigate, go look, go study, go see if what we're saying is the truth. And if it is the truth, then accept it and move out on it. Do something with it, share it, pay it forward. And this is something that we don't tend to do too often. We don't pay it forward. Somebody comes along and shares something that gives us a blessing, and we'll take it and we just accept it. No, somebody, bless you in such a way that it helps you make it to the next step. It's up to you to do the same thing for somebody else.
There you go, brother. And well said. And on that note, before we get out of here, anything else you'd like to add before we run out, brother?
Oh, no, sir. Well, I encourage people to, think outside the box. It's something I posted a few days ago. I said, those who think outside the box have a much bigger space and they have more room to think.
Come on.
But as long as you continue to try to think inside the box that's been created for you, you will never see the benefits that you are supposed to receive. There's a big field out here awaiting, those of you who are seeking a better life for yourself. But unfortunately, you're going to have to abandon some of the teachings and some of the traditions that have been imposed on us and that's been taught to us, for hundreds of years. You got to step outside that box and go and search for the knowledge that you need in order to put yourself where you need to be. And so the last thing I'll give to them is what was given to us. Set yourself in heaven at once, meaning you don't look for nobody else. Just put you in heaven. But I guess I should say, we don't believe that heaven is a place you go to after you die.
Right.
Heaven is a state of mind, just like hell is a state of mind.
Create your heaven on earth.
Create your heaven on earth. And so, whatever it is that you need to do to create the heaven that you desire, it's up to you to do it. It's not up to anybody else. And if you don't accomplish it or you can't accomplish it, you can't blame anybody else because now you know.
Thank you, brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Verbal Prick Radio, and we out.